If you did not know this about me, I absolutely hate anything that is mechanical or technological. So I stayed away from gravity fed or any sort of watering system for the longest time because it completely overwhelmed me. But the Geek Crew, and if you want to join the Geek Crew, it's just hitting the subscribe button, no cost, and you will gain a ton of knowledge. Because the Geek Crew is much smarter than I am, and they're particularly smart when it comes to watering systems. So many different creative ideas. So I finally this year decided to jump into this because we're supposed to have a drought year. The prairies didn't get the memo. It's been raining nonstop. I'm still in a freaking bunny hug because it's so cold and it's the end of June. But if it ever does decide to come back, the drought prediction, I'm ready for you. Now, in Ashley's mind, because I'm intimidated by this, I went out and I bought the Lee Valley Gravity Fed Kit. Now, you don't have to get that, and it's not sponsored, it was not given to me, and I actually did end up going to buy it, but I didn't need it, and that's the beauty of... And the craziest part about this entire situation is I used approximately one thing out of the Lee Valley kit, and I never used anything else. Now, what I used was the 1/2-inch hose. The rest of it, I actually went and grabbed from Home Depot, shockingly enough. And furthermore, because I had simplified this system so flippin' much, it cost me next to nothing to get this done. Okay, so number one actually starts here back at this tap. This is a 2-way valve. Now, you can get a 1-way valve, like just one way out. This has 2 because I have 2 garden beds. Obviously, I have the tomatoes there and I have the tomatoes there. Anyone who's been on this channel long enough knows that. And on this, I have these 2 little devices. Now, these are from Lee Valley, and you can just buy these separate. You can also buy these off Amazon. I'll link them down below. They cost next to nothing. All that these are ends that screw on to a regular tap. There's no regulator inside because that was one of the things I was so intimidated by because I had the watering tape for the longest time and I used a regulator and the regulator didn't work and I'd be blowing off, that sounds horrible, the ends, the regulator ends, the elbows, the nipples, that actually is what you call those, would just explode. And none of it was not in a good way, not a good explosion. It was wet. But again, not in a good way. I was scared of regulators. This is not a regulator. All this is got a tiny little screen, and the tiny little screen is solely to make sure that the rest of the tubing doesn't get plugged up, and you maybe have to spray it out every once in a while. I haven't had to do that yet, but that's what's in there. And then this little part actually is just to get this 1/2-inch hose inside of there. Now, that hose literally makes a giant U inside of this bed on both sides. And I'm holding the entire system down with the landscape staples. After that, I had the hoses and I had the regular little spray ends and the nozzles and blah, 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 blah. I used none of it, 0 of it. What I did use was these little tiny 1/4-inch lines. And I cut a little hole in this. Actually, I drilled like a little tiny drill bit into the side, the same size as this thingy. I put the little, and then I shoved the tube inside of there. And then this is the tube with no regulator. And then I just put it right at the base of the plant. And then to regulate the speed, because that's what the little regulators are for, is like 1 gallon per minute, 5 gallon per minute. It means nothing to me. I don't know what it means. I don't care what it means. I use this to speed it up or slow it down. So all I do is I watch it, turn it on, and then I say, okay, that's a good speed. And then I leave it and it waters all my tomatoes. I forgot one thing. You do need a plug on the end. And again, the plug is like super easy to find. I'll just link it down below. Now the height. This matters because the higher it is, the more gravity pressure you have. So they say 3 feet or something like that's ideal. This is not 3 feet and above the garden bed. It's like, well, I guess, okay, so from here to the top is probably like 4 feet, but from here to like the bottom of this tank is like a foot, maybe a 1.5 feet. And that's all. And it does make it all the way to the end here. So, and this bed is 8 feet long by 1.5 feet, seems to do 4 by 8 foot long bed. Perfectly fine. There is no thought or science that went into the spacing of the actual hoses coming out of the 1/2 inch. So the 1/4 inch coming out of the 1/2 inch hose. There's zero thought process there. It's literally just willy-nilly. Wherever the plants were planted, I friggin' tossed them in, done. And it does, again, even without regulators and fancy drip nozzles, yada, 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 it makes it all the way to the end of this thing. Perfectly fine. The whole freaking bed is watered. So, something to seriously consider. It's made my life a whole lot easier. I am now addicted to self-watering systems, and I did buy a solar-powered one off of Amazon. So if you want to see that video, let me know in the comments down below, and I will do that. Thank you for watching, Geek Crew. I appreciate you so much because you just made my life so much easier.